Good morning. You're watching Daybreak on Bloomberg Quint Live, and I'm Alex Matthew. Well, the first headlines of today are Asian shares trade mixed amid concerns as the markets attempt to shrug off earlier jitters. And in macro cues to watch today, retail inflation for June and industrial production data for May will be announced later today. Oil prices fall sharply on trade dispute escalation and news that Libya is resuming oil exports. And Road Transport Minister Nitin Gadkari says he is confident of BJP winning a comfortable majority in 2019. That's an exclusive. On to the US markets first. Global investors have mostly looked past the intensifying trade fight between the US and China, even as the countries move to deploy tariffs on hundreds of billions of dollars in goods. But the mood on Wall Street is apparently darkening. Wall Street's four-day winning streak ended with a thud on Wednesday as another round of US-China trade tensions prompted a global sell-off in stocks. Abigail Doolittle of Bloomberg News wraps up the Wall Street action in this report.
Stocks fell in Wednesday's Wall Street session, snapping a four-day winning streak. The Dow was down about 0.9%, the S&P 500 down about 0.7%, the worst day for both of those indexes in about 2 weeks, while the tech-heavy NASDAQ down a little more than 0.5%. Now, behind all of this bearish action, and it wasn't just stocks that were hit, commodities down too on renewed fears that a trade war between the U.S. and China could intensify. Relative to the slide in commodities, the Bloomberg Commodity Index down 2.7%, its worst day since 2015. Oil, copper, wheat, many commodities sharply lower. China is considered to be the world's largest consumer of natural resources, and thus investors, traders fearful that any sort of real trade war could eat into that demand picture on the part of China. Now, the worst sector on the day, energy, down sharply. This, of course, in sympathy with oil, down more than 4.5%. Its worst day in more than a year. And some of the big movers there, Chevron, Exxon, Hess, and many others. Materials, another sector that was down sharply, and one stock there that fell quite a bit. Freeport-McMoRan sharply lower. The copper company in sympathy with copper down at about 3%, its worst day of the year, while many of the steel stocks were lower as well, including U.S. Steel, AK Steel, and Nucor. But the worst performer for the S&P 500 overall should have actually been aided by falling oil, but that was not the case. American Airlines, that stock down more than 8%, its worst day in more than 2 years after the company offered a revised second quarter revenue view that disappointed investors. And overall, with stocks lower and even Haven bonds about flat, but the slide in stocks and commodities really making Wednesday's Wall Street session risk off. In New York, Abigail Doolittle, Bloomberg News.
All right, that was the perspective on the U.S. markets and how they performed last evening. You must have heard a very clear mention of the fact that commodities saw a major sell-off in the overnight session. I'm going across now live to David Inglis in the Hong Kong studio of Bloomberg, who's going to give me perhaps a little perspective of the Asian markets. Is commodities what you're looking at? Seemingly a bounce back in some of the markets that have opened up right now, David.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you have a few bright spots. I guess just to mention that, so you have Australia, which is up 0.6%. Japan is also seeing a bid. China, for one, 0.4%. But keep in mind, a lot of these markets that I'm mentioning right now did come off a fairly horrible hump day session. To your point, yes, we're watching commodities very closely. In fact, Goldman was out following that route that we saw back in the New York session. So what they're saying, there's no doubt, there's no denial that there has already been a drag as far as some of the macro data is concerned. In fact, they've revised lower their forecasts for the likes of copper and aluminum. Our sub-index of industrial metals, the Bloomberg sub-index for industrial metals, is now just about, 4 or 5% away from entering a bear market. A lot of that actually comes down to the last few days or so, where you had a fairly sharp decline in the likes of copper, for example. So I think that's one to watch. Apart from that, and obviously the follow-through effect of that is you have a lot of the declines also in the currency space, and the weakness there dragged lower by either commodity-related currencies or trade-related currencies, or in most cases, of course, both. The South Korean one's a good example. We're down 0.8%. We had a central bank decision, or the rate decision, which is out about 35 minutes back, hold we should expect some lines coming out of the BOK in just a few moments, of course, when they come out with a press conference, and make no doubt that they will be chiming in on what's been happening on the trade front. I mean, that economy gets, what, 40% of its output coming from exports, and within that sort of span, or within that pie of exports, about 25% of its exports come from products that are very exposed to what's happening, semiconductors and also autos. Just tidbit there for you guys. But broadly speaking, you put everything together, the equity markets were mixed, and we're a little bit low right now on the benchmark. Volumes are quite light, which I guess speaks to the sort of money sitting on the sidelines narrative amidst what's going on, of course, between the Americans and the Chinese.
All right, thanks so much for that, David. I'm taking risk off is what you're saying at the moment. Let's turn to India now, and Darshan Mehta is here to tell you about the day's trade and also what's happening in the futures and options space. Darshan, clearly I think the headline would be the crude price fall and the likely impact on oil retailers in today's session.
Yeah, so two things very clearly I'll watch out for. First of all, the oil marketing companies, as you pointed out, in the last half an hour of your trade, if you see yesterday what happened, all three managed to spike up. So there was an indication that, you know, crude probably will crack. And the second one I'll watch out is the battery makers, because lead was down 5% and it's continuously moving down. It's a key raw material for them. So earnings impact definitely will be seen. So watch out for Exide and Amara Raja. But let's focus on what happened as far as the Nifty is concerned. The S650 no doubt is trading with a positive bias. We're coming in very close to the 11,000 mark in trade. Yesterday also, if you're looking, let's first take a look at the ADRs to get a sense of what happened in the ADR. So most of them were down in trade. Vedanta, because of the commodity crash, was down 5%. Tata Motors, ICICI Bank also down in excess of 1%. Dr. Reddy's over the past few days has been weak. The only exception was HDFC Bank, which saw gains of almost 0.7%. Now let's take a look at what happened. The Nifty was up almost 1 point, and be assured that this was only on account of TCS. When you come out with the contribution, you can see only on account of TCS the markets were up. Otherwise we would have been down some 30-40 points on the Nifty. The mid cap and small cap did manage to crack in trade. They were down in trade anywhere between close to 0.5%. The Nifty Bank was weak in trade, 0.3%, and the PSU Bank saw significant amount of selling, was down almost 1.9%. Now if you took a look at the sectors which gained, and there was just one that gained significantly, that outperformed, and that was the Nifty IT index, and that was solely on account of TCS. Now if you're looking at the sector which didn't do well, and that was metals, commodities as a package doing weak. LME, they cracked in trade. So base metals are not doing well, and the metal stocks are also not doing well in trade. Now if you're looking at what's happened this week itself, oil marketing companies and Reliance have led the rally in the Nifty Energy. Nifty IT is up almost 4%, and the real estate is up almost 3%. So this is the action that's happened in the last 3 days. Metals is the only index which is trading with a slight negative bias. So it's been a very decent week so far. As far as the month performance is concerned, IT, auto and energy continue to do well. Of late, Maruti and Tata Motors haven't been contributing, but auto's seen a significant revival. Metal is the only one that's cracked almost 4% this week. So it's been a very poor month for metals itself. Now take a look at which are the stocks at record highs, and this list keeps on increasing. We just took a few of them. AI Engineering is the new kid on the block. Exide again will move in focus because of the lead price hike. KPIT yesterday moved up. Nestle, Reliance, TCS, Tata Elxsi. So Reliance and TCS are the two heaviest, are the two largest market cap on the Nifty, and they are trading at record highs. Now in terms of stocks at 52-week lows, only Nifty counter is UPL at this point of time. So this list gets on becoming narrower and narrower. Now look at what happened on the fund flow side. Yesterday FIs were net buyers after a long time. They bought in 636 crores in the cash market, but overall on the month side they've been sellers. DIs have been buying almost 3,500 crores of equities this month. Now if you look at the contribution, and this is where 26 points on the Nifty was contributed because of TCS, another 11 because of Reliance, and Infosys contributed 9 points. HUL also at a record high. What didn't contribute? ICICI Bank, HDFC and Maruti Suzuki. So majority of the contribution came in from TCS this time around because of a 6% rally. If this was not there, we would have closed in the red for the Nifty. Now on the futures side, what we saw was the fact that the open interest build-up was 3% on the long side for the Nifty. The Nifty futures are trading at a discount of 10 points. Look at the Nifty Bank and you will come to see that there was a lot of long unwinding that happened. A lot of positions that were taken on the long side got involved. Open interest was down 7%. Now if you're looking at what happened as far as the open interest change is concerned, you could see that yesterday even at 10,800 and 10,900, put writers are much more aggressive. Call writers are aggressive at the 11,000 level. So there will be resistance that will come in for the market at the 11,000 11,000 level. And if you pull up the total open interest, and you can see what exactly I'm trying to say, is that 11,000 has a sizable amount of open interest build-up, which means that it will take a lot of time for the Nifty to go up. But if this cracks, there will be much, the move on the higher side will be much faster. Obviously at lower levels from 10,700, 10,800, the support is clearly there for the market itself. This is for the Nifty itself. IDBI Bank is the only stock in the F&O band, up almost 6%. Short covering was seen on the counter. PCR moved up on the Nifty to 1.66 from 1.65. It was lackluster in trade. The Nifty Bank PCR came off because the Nifty Bank was down in trade. Now, if you're looking at the 3-4 stocks I want to point out, Adani Enterprises moved up 9% on high open interest build-up of 15%, was one of the top gainers. The other stock was Tata Elxsi, high open interest build-up, stock trading at record highs. So there is enough traction that is happening in the counter. As far as Ramco Cement is concerned, fresh shorts on high open interest build-up of 13%. And finally, the last stock I want to point out is Adani Ports, moved up almost 18% on high open interest build-up of 11%.
All right, thanks so much for that, Darshan. Lots of stocks to watch out for, but before we move to specifics there, apart from what Darshan has spoken about, we'll take a check on the rupee and the bond market. Saloni Dhanuka is here with all the updates there. Morning, Saloni. What do you have for us this morning?
Good morning, Alex. So speaking about Indian rupee, it was the best performing Asian currency yesterday. In fact, it was the only Asian currency to end the day in positive territory. The home unit ended marginally higher against the dollar at 68.77 levels against the dollar. Well, on the domestic front, investors will be taking cues from the CPI as well as industrial production data, which is scheduled to release today. Well, speaking of the bond market, sovereign bonds declined yesterday for the third straight session ahead of the treasury bill sale, and hence we have seen the 10-year benchmark yield rising nearly 1 basis point to end at 7.91%. In terms of flows into debt market, global funds increased their rupee debt holdings yesterday. They infused close to 965 crores according to NSDL data into their portfolio. Well, on the global front, dollar index ended higher for the third straight session. It ended 0.6% higher, well above the 94.50 mark, and it now trades higher near 94.70 levels in the early Asian hours. That apart, dollar surged to a 6-month high against the Japanese yen yesterday. This is on the back of escalating trade war tensions between US and China. Elsewhere, Chinese yuan, on the contrary, fell the most since August 2015. Now, remember, this is the worst sell-off since the Chinese central bank devalued its currency in 2015. And lastly, speaking of dollar rupee, now it is trading flat in the non-deliverable forward markets, which indicates a flat opening for Indian rupee in today's trade, Alex.
All right, thanks so much for that, Saloni. Let's move and take a check on the commodity space. Jayesh Gilnani is here with all the details there. Jayesh, perhaps the most buzzing space to talk about, lots of commodities falling, but particularly crude oil.
That's right, Alex. In fact, crude oil, declined by 5% overnight, and that was the biggest fall in over 2 years that we've seen. On the other hand, Brent declined as much as 7%. Now, all of this was on the back of escalating trade war concerns that we have been witnessing in the last couple of days. But what has added to the pressure overnight session is that the resumption of exports from Libya's eastern ports. So that has added the pressure on falling prices. Now, there was some positive news that came about for oil markets, which was on the inventory front. So the US inventories have actually declined more than 12.5 million barrels for last week, but that was unable to hold on to the oil prices, and we saw a sharp cut in the price. Moving on to the base metal space, that too was under pressure. The index itself on London Metal Exchange declined about 2.5% and is now trading at the lowest level since August last year. Copper has in fact declined to the lowest level in almost a year on the back of the tariff concerns, which ended about 3% lower on LME. On the other hand, we had zinc prices, which for which the cancelled warrants rose about 14% and came in at a 3-month high. And on the back of all of this, zinc prices declined more than 2.5%. Lead was the top loser, and it saw a cut of nearly 5% for itself. While we had nickel and tin, which snapped the 2-day gain and ended lower as well. Lastly, we had aluminium, which actually declined for a second straight day, ended about 1.5% lower. Now, moving on to the precious metal space, that too came under pressure because there was underlying strength in the dollar index, and we saw gold prices decline for the second straight day.
All right, thanks so much for that, Jayesh. Now, moving on to an exclusive conversation that we have for you, Road Transport Minister Nitin Gadkari is confident of BJP winning a majority in 2019. Speaking to senior journalist Karan Thapar, the confident Gadkari said that he will return with the same ministerial portfolio for the next 5 years to complete 12 new express highway projects. Listen in to just a portion of that conversation.
2019 and the elections are just 9 months away. Many people have convinced themselves that Mr. Modi cannot win as many seats in 2019 as he won in 2014. But Amit Shah ji has gone on record to say that not only will Mr. Modi do better, but in addition the BJP will get 50% of the popular vote. I have sitting in front of me a man who's proven today that he's not just independent-minded, but actually very honest and not afraid to voice his honest opinion. How will the BJP, in your opinion, do in 2019?
I feel that the performance of the Modi government and leadership of Narendra Modi ji, I am full confident we will get reasonable majority in the next election.
Over 272?
I will tell you one thing. In Northeast, we have only 1 or 2 seats. Now we will get better seats there.
But you're going to lose in UP, Madhya Pradesh, Rajasthan, Haryana.
Sir, you wait for it. These all compromises and the alliances, ये मुंगेरी लाल के हसीन सपने हैं सर, ये ज्यादा दिन टिक नहीं पाएंगे।
अच्छा मुझे ये बताइएगा, आपको 272 मिलेंगे या कम?
पूरे 272 मिलेंगे, हमारी मेजोरिटी आएगी और हमारी सरकार आएगी और मोदी जी प्रधानमंत्री बनेंगे।
आपके 272 बीजेपी के होंगे या एलाइज के साथ?
बीजेपी के होंगे।
बीजेपी के?
हाँ।
So the BJP on its own will have a clear majority.
100%. We are confident about it.
My last question. Many people say that if the BJP tally falls to 200 or 220, the man sitting in front of me, Nitin Gadkari, will be Prime Minister because you will be more acceptable to the allies. And that is something you've heard many times before. How do you respond to that speculation?
जी, मेरी औकात और हैसियत से मुझे बहुत ज़्यादा मिला है। मैं समाधानी हूँ, मैं कोई रेस में नहीं हूँ, मैं पार्टी की आइडियोलॉजी को फॉलो करके देश के लिए काम करने वाला।
सर मैं नहीं कह रहा आप रेस में हैं, लेकिन हो सकता है कि किस्मत आप पे स्माइल करे।
मैं इसमें कोई लफड़े में नहीं हूँ। आई एम हैप्पी एज ए मिनिस्टर। ना मैं कोई कैंडिडेट हूँ, ना मुझे होना है, ना ऐसे होने की कोई संभावना।
आप कैंडिडेट नहीं है, मैं कह भी नहीं रहा कि आप कैंडिडेट हैं, लेकिन अगर आपकी पार्टी की हालत इतनी बिगड़ गई कि आप 200 या 220 पे अटक गए और तब अगर एलाइज कहें कि अगर बीजेपी का प्रधानमंत्री हो तो सिर्फ नितिन गडकरी हो, आप स्वीकार करने को तैयार हैं, आप मानने को तैयार हैं?
पहली बात ऐसी है कि ये कोई होने की संभावना नहीं है। हमको मोदी जी के
ये ना आपको पता है ना मुझे पता है, लेकिन अगर वो हालत हो, वुड यू बी विलिंग टू बी प्राइम मिनिस्टर?
ऐसी हालत होने वाली नहीं तो उसका जवाब देने का कारण क्या है? I am fully confident we will get the majority and Modi will be the Prime Minister. And again, I will be the same charge as Road Minister to complete new 12 express highways of this country.
Well, for the entire conversation, you can log on to the website bloombergquint.com. It's there and it's exclusive, like I told you. All right, the government is likely to take action on FMCG companies offering discounts on toothpastes and shampoos. It had earlier asked pharma companies to reverse GST on free samples. Nikunj Ori is here with more details on that.
The government may go after consumer goods companies who've been offering discounts and giving products for free under the various promotional offers by asking these FMCG companies to reverse the credit that they've been taking on these free products or the extra grammage that they offer on your shampoo or on your creams. The government's view is that these FMCG companies have been claiming credit on the free products that they're giving under the various promotional offers, but not paying GST on these free products. Under the pre-GST or excise regime, companies or manufacturers used to pay excise duty at the manufacturing level and then claim credit. But in the case of GST, these companies are claiming input credit and not paying GST on these free products. And the government's view is that because of this, the government is losing out on tax revenue. This comes after the government went after pharmaceutical companies who've been offering free supplies to their stockists and claiming input credit on these free supplies. After listening to pharmaceutical companies' views, the government has decided that they would expand their investigation against pharmaceutical companies across India and may ask all these pharmaceutical companies to reverse the credit that they've availed on these free supplies.
All right, you might have to say goodbye to free toothpaste then. I don't know how many people would be smiling after that. All right, let's take a serious conversation forward now. What are the stocks that you have to watch for in trade today? Those are the stocks in news. Shraddha Babla is here to tell you all about that. Morning, Shraddha.
Morning, Alex. I'm going to start off with Cipla, where the company's subsidiary has acquired a South African-based company, Miren, for 228 crores. That's about 450 million South African rands. That will help them strengthen the market position and accelerate growth within the OTC space in that country. That apart, you have Forgings, which will issue bonus shares in the ratio 1:1. You have Omax Limited, which has received the Gandhi Maidan project for redevelopment of multi-level cars parking space. You have a ET report which says that IHH is set to win the final Fortis Healthcare war with a bid of 180 per share. Let's see how that one reacts. You also have Indipulse Venture, where Cinnamon Capital Limited, which held about 8.6% stake in June, that continues to offload shares via bulk deals. They have sold 1.4% stake day before. And then you have Jasmine Capital Investments, which continues to buy. They've bought that 1.4% stake from Cinnamon Capital. You also have Eris Life Sciences, All Cargo Logistics and Finolex Industries, which will meet investors today, so keep an eye out for those names. And finally, you have Century Enca Promoter Group, which has sold 3.9 lakh shares. That's about 1.8% stake on 9th of July. This is based on insider trades that were reported. So again, that's another stock to watch out for.
All right, thanks so much for that, Shraddha. Let's move on now. Somit Sarkar is here with the big brokerage calls of the day. Morning, Somit. What do you have for us today?
Good morning, Alex. On the big brokerage calls for the day, first we have is Jefferies on HEG. Now, the brokerage has maintained its buy rating on the stock with a target price of 4,400 rupees. Now, according to the brokerage, in the HEG investor meet, the company said that they're expecting the realizations to remain robust for at least first half of financial year 2019, as the company has already booked volumes at higher prices. Along with this, demand-supply tightness would also keep realizations at an elevated level for HEG. Now, the management also said that the debottlenecking process of Phillips 66 needle coke would complete by November 2018, which would in turn improve the utilization levels for HEG. Now, the management also pointed out that the rising steel capacities in China would keep the demand for high-grade graphite electrode at a higher level in China. Now, lastly, the company is also looking at different business opportunities to invest its cash in a proper way in the carbon space. Second, we have is IDFC Securities on Tata Steel. Now, the brokerage has maintained its buy rating on the stock with a target price of 755. Now, Tata Steel management said that the company will continue growth opportunities in India, as they have a clear vision to increase their capacity to 24 million tons per annum by financial year 2022. Now, the company currently has an excess iron ore supply of close to 3 million tons per annum, which the company is looking to supply to Bhushan Steel plants and is working with authorities on the same. Now, though the balance sheet of the company is highly leveraged with a net debt of close to 1 lakh crore rupees, the company says that they are capable of servicing this debt, and they have a net debt to EBITDA target of around 3 to 3.5 times for the long term. Lastly, on the back of this, and given the current share prices of Tata Steel, the brokerage believes that the negatives related to Tata Steel are already priced in, and they advise to buy the stock on declines.
All right, thanks for that, Somit. Well, lots of stories that you can find on the website bloombergquint.com. Here are just a couple of them. The Telecom Commission has approved net neutrality rules which bar service providers from discriminating against internet content and services by blocking, throttling or granting them higher speed access. And after getting a go-ahead from the insurance regulator IRDAI, Life Insurance Corporation of India is preparing itself to complete the 51% acquisition of troubled IDBI Bank by the end of September. All right, there's a new gold rush in Texas, but instead of gold, it's sand. You don't think about sand being a hot commodity, but it has become one in southern US state of Texas, and it's all due to fracking, which is a process of extracting oil from shale rock. Check out what role sand has to play in this business. right, FIFA 2018 has been nothing short of a roller coaster ride, and yesterday's semi-final between England and Croatia was no exception. The Croats surprisingly beat England 2-1 to reach their first World Cup finals. England took the lead in the 5th minute with Karan Thapar scoring a goal with a free kick, and that lead lasted all the way to the second half, but then Croatia's Ivan Perisic scored in the 68th minute. And that was it for the 90 minutes. Mario Mandzukic, though, broke England hearts in the 109th minute in extra time, scoring the winning goal, and that'll take them to the finals this weekend against France. Well, who would have thought that Croatia would make it to the World Cup finals? They're clearly the underdog against France. Now it's a binary choice for you. You've got to tell me who you think is going to win. It's either France or Croatia. Let me know in the comment section below. Thanks so much for watching. This is Bloomberg Quint.